This episode of Drunken Science Tube touches on extremely volatile and sensitive topics. Therefore, I have a script, and I will read from it and drink beer, just so you know. I am not a doctor, and especially not a virologist. I'm a state-certified laboratory assistant with a focus on chemistry. I started 2 undergraduate studies and never finished them. The last time I worked in a lab is about 7 years ago. I try to stay informed by employing things that I learned in my vocational training at the universities, that is to read, educate yourself, and assume at any time that there is something that you don't know. Does that matter? No! I'm not going to convince you with my background. I like to convince you with my arguments. TLDR or TLDL, too long, didn't listen. Yes, definitely. Take what I have to say with a grain of salt, please. Everyone is in some way aware that the world is quite shit right now. Virtually no country is unscathed by the SARS-CoV-2 pandemic, hence the word pandemic. The measures undertaken by various countries are only on top of the strain of healthcare workers and the immense human suffering. So why do I want to throw this probably meaningless video into the mix? At first, there is a selfish reason of a personal outlet. Trying to put... It's already working. Trying to put thoughts in a concise format is somehow cathartic to me. Second, and much more important, is something bigger. There is a good chance that my arguments are not new to someone and that this kind of problem has been described better by others. I have a problem with the way the pandemic is treated in the media. And adjacent to that, I have a problem with the way newspapers treat science in general. I don't want to generalize, maybe later. I rather like to start with an example that happened to push me over the edge to make this video in the first place. There are many scientists in Germany, and all of them are in some way involved dealing with SARS-2. I call it SARS-2 for short. I heard this at the brilliant podcast TWIF. This Week in Virology. It's an American podcast. It's awesome. I put the link in the description so that everybody can find it. The vast majority of them are not in the public view. With them I mean the scientists. And even fewer are portrayed in the media. Some media outlets have podcasts on their own and few of them regularly feature scientists. The NDR, it's Norddeutscher Rundfunk, or North German Broadcast, has a podcast with a rather generic but sufficiently explanatory title, Coronavirus Update. That's cool, I don't have to translate that. The longer title is Das Coronavirus Update mit Christian Drosten. Mr. Drosten is a virologist at the Berlin hospital Charité, and he had this to say in episode 24. Actually, I'm putting my script on hold because I have a rather long text in German that I didn't translate, and I think it is just unfair to read it to you. The link for this specific episode to the podcast will be in the description. If you want me to translate it like in a text form, I'm happy to do so, but in the context of that argument, it's just a bit too much German for those people who don't speak German. It's maybe a bit weird to listen to. Thank you, dishwasher, for ruining my scene. That's home isolation for you guys. I don't care. The dishwasher is awesome. All hail the dishwasher because it does all the dirty jobs for people at home. So all hail the dishwashers and virologists, and wash your hands. I understand the grievance of Mr. Drosten as the following. The media's tendency to dramatize a situation and its protagonists is counterproductive in this situation. To put scientists against each other in a pitch battle of interpretative supremacy leads to an extreme misrepresentation of reality. The media has to be aware of its impact on society. Admittedly, this is a rather short mediation of his interview snippet. Again, I put the link down in the description for everybody to hear this episode. But this encapsulates what I want to complain about, especially in times that clickbait is a thing, scientific information is very hard to come by, and it is easy for someone to blatantly disregard scientific knowledge. Nobody believes that Kenneth Copeland wished SARS-2 out of existence by screaming at it. But you know what's actually scary? I think someone really believes this. I don't know if you saw this, but this is a pretty weird video, and you're gonna watch the first seconds of that. You're all gonna suffer with me.
We're gonna exercise judgment right now.
Because we have...
In the name of Jesus.
Oh, thank you, Jesus.
Standing in the office of the prophet of God, I execute judgment on you, COVID-19.
Oh.
Speaking of which, God, where is my whiskey? My favorite. Some angels share. Much better. Okay, back to the bigger picture. That it seems that everyone wants to know something, but doesn't want to listen to the explanation, where that knowledge comes from. But this is a crucial piece of the puzzle. Everything hinges on it. The process of scientific progress is excruciatingly boring to most external viewers. Its most integral feature is peer review. It's almost never be found in the media. It takes time. It's written in scientific papers that are notoriously difficult to read for the uninitiated, yet alone to understand. Science at its core does not have heroes and leaders. For so many of us, the first view we encounter of scientific process. Popularization of science is mostly glued to the scientist, which isn't the reality. Most papers are written by multiple people. It's easily 15 or sometimes more than 20 people at once. Plus everyone who is required to run a lab or a specific scientific experiment. Science is a community effort, and it is interesting to see where the community as a whole takes their information from. I would suggest that some form of media outlet is the first place people generally take a look. In this pandemic, answers are scarce and questions are plenty. We are desperately want to give a reassuring answer, but the hard truth is the immediate future is shrouded in darkness. Science can be a candle in the dark. Thank you to Carl Sagan for this immortal metaphor. Again, but this is not good for stories for breakfast TV or 5 minutes of fame. It doesn't even go for clickbait. Nobody really wants to hear stuff that is uncertain or put with a specific uncertainty, because what does that make for media attention, right? On the other hand, as much as media tries to say, well, we give the first front for scientific information maybe, and people are interested then and they go look up, I would contest. I would say that nobody picks up a textbook for orbital mechanics, that stuff, just because he saw awesome video about SpaceX. Yes, I know textbooks are not primary sources. Papers are. Much has been said about repercussions about fake news and deliberately false information. But what about simplified or incomplete information? Where is the difference when it comes to those repercussions from that? One of the worst arguments I and many others heard and read in the last month is that SARS-2 is like the flu. This is so wrong, I can't even. But what if those arguments shape the behavior of the society at large? What about the idea that we are prepared? That so many news outlets quote politicians without mentioning specificities. Could one like that lead to behaviors of ignorance in the society at large? Did you notice that I put all my statements in the form of a question? Those are legit questions. But at the same time, I'm installing a conclusion in the line of your thinking without stating that conclusion. I'm sorry, I stopped my spiel now, sorry. It's obviously a blunt trick. The honest answer is I don't know. I don't know the repercussions. And I would be delighted to find out. Maybe in the future we will have a concise review of the impact of those informations, but I don't know. Maybe the answer is quite simple. In some way, some of the things we are accustomed to in our society are showing to be unfit for a global pandemic. Maybe the answer is not simple. I would like it to be that way. I would like it to be complex. The honest answer again is, I don't know. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to read this book that I found about virology because I feel that I know next to nothing about it. I'm as dumb as the next person. So I have to be smart and read things from people who are maybe a little bit better at this and wrote textbooks to read in them, right? Stay safe. Prost.